Okay, here we are again on Elijah's Codes with me, Eliyahu, and my guest today is an amazing healer who's traveled the world and has had amazing experiences. And I've learned so much. He was my healer for quite a long time until his car broke down and he couldn't get from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But he helped me a lot, and I learned a lot from Yadin. And how are you today, Yadin?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here and seeing you after all this time. And you look great. You look so much more better than the last time I saw you.
Well, you look great too, Yadin.
Thank you.
And Yadin, you have such great stories. And you're a young man, but you've experienced a lot. And it's hard to know where to begin. Maybe I'll begin with how I found out about Yadin. I have a good friend who's back in America now, but he was living here. He was in a terrible car accident. My friend Greg. And a young man who was also a healer and also a channeler and a mystical being and a very big heart. And anyway, they didn't know. After the accident, they even were talking about amputating his leg, but he insisted that they didn't. And they didn't. But they didn't know if he'd ever walk again, or how well or how badly he might walk. And he started working with you, Yadin, and he told me what a great healer you are. And so that's how I came to know you. What was the key to... And by the way, our friend Greg, he made a miraculous recovery. And last I saw him, he was walking almost perfectly. What was the key in working with Greg, Yadin, in his big success, do you think?
Wow. You know what? This is a kind of
Or maybe it's about a patient, but it's a success story, though. You know.
Yeah, it's a success story. It has a lot to do with Greg's character and the trials he had to go through. It was definitely a personal. I don't know if to say test, as if the universe was testing him.
Yes.
Or giving him an opportunity, you know.
I like the phrase opportunity. Better.
Yeah, I think so. I like it better.
Test.
Yeah.
Because when you see, as Greg Braden says, if you see these things as a test, you know, oh God, another test, then your biology will reflect that understanding. But if you see it as an opportunity to show God and the universe who you are, then your biology will reflect that understanding.
I completely agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think, you know what? Maybe we'll put two terms together, because emotionally wise, when somebody goes through such a thing, Greg was here alone. He didn't have any family. He came to Israel. He was here alone, yes. And he was in rehab alone. He didn't have any support.
Yes.
Normally, you'd have your family around you.
Correct.
So on the emotional level, one would go into, you know, difficult feelings, as if the universe is testing you or giving you, you know, the cold shoulder.
Yes.
And what I must say about Greg is that with all the difficulty and the loneliness that I'm sure he had to go through, because months and months of rehab, not even knowing, you know, if anything is going to work out,
yes.
If he's going to have this leg, if he's going to walk, if he's going to be normal, you know, to whatever that he was hoping to. He really took this as an opportunity, and the opportunity, without going into too much personal details of the personal process we did together,
okay,
he literally went to every piece in his heart, in his soul, in his history, physical history, emotional history, everything. And he used this time of rehab, he used this time of not being able to move,
yes,
to really see every corner in his life. and work with that. And some moments were very difficult and seemed as if, it's not going anywhere. And some moments were victorious and miraculous. And he succeeded. And he did, to the best of my perception, he managed to bring, after making this total cleanup, I guess, of his life, he managed to close some phase in his life and move on with different strength, different light, different frame of mind, frame of thought, frame of faith, and really enlightened his body in such way that the tissues were able to respond better than the doctors had thought and in much faster time.
Yes. It was amazing. It was miraculous.
Yeah. It was beautiful to witness. Sometimes very difficult, but beautiful to witness.
He told me once that a very good thing that came out of the experience for him was, he said his pain level was reset. And what did he mean by that? What he meant was that certain things that would have bothered him or distressed him or caused him great pain in the past, after he had gone through what he had gone through and triumphed, he would never again be bothered by these things. Now these things were small for him. Some of the things that had bothered him and upset him, now, after having gone through a sort of a hell, those things that used to upset him didn't upset him at all. Didn't give him much pain at all, because his pain level was reset. And that's a great thing. Once, I was living in an apartment in a sort of in a multi-family building here in Israel, and they started doing all of the apartments above me and below me, everywhere. They were all getting their balconies built, and they were using these drills, these jackhammers, above me and below me, and it was like the most incredible noise, and it caused me to move. But it was such an incredible, hellish noise. My apartment was shaking. I wasn't getting a balcony built in the flat I was renting, but everywhere around me. And it was such a terrible noise. It reset my pain level vis-a-vis noise. So what I used to consider a loud and terrible noise doesn't bother me anymore.
Till this very day?
Until this very day.
Oh my God.
Because my level was reset by the drills everywhere. So anyway, and of course Greg had big spiritual connection. He had a lot of help. We all have help, but he was fortunate to see them and to hear them. So anyway, that's how I found out about Yadin. And Yadin, I've heard some great stories by some amazing people. And I think one of the greatest stories I ever heard, was the story you told me about when you were on an exercise in the Israel army.
Yeah.
Trying to run up a mountain.
Yeah.
I would love to have you tell this story.
Well, okay, the story is funny in different ways. But here's the thing, I think if I look into God's design, I'm not meant to be in a combat special unit, whatever. I'm just not cut out for that.
I don't think you are, but were you in a combat
special
unit?
Yeah,
Okay.
I started out in this very elite unit.
Yes.
And the story takes place during training. It's just the reason why I gave this intro to explaining this is because eventually what I did get out of the military is not so much of this. I realized I was going to be a therapist, but I was so far away from understanding my soul and my path to get me to that place. And being in that place in this unit, I was probably the most unfit one to be there.
Okay.
Physically, and also the way that my mind worked. When everybody were busy making the best shot, you know, shooting the best, aiming the best, being the best in physical stuff, I was mostly busy on how people are feeling and processing their military experience, which of course wasn't very beneficial. But when we did go to exercises, for me it was tremendous amount of suffering because I was always the last one. And
Yes.
which of course makes you feel you're not man enough and you're not
Yes.
Israeli enough and you're not whatever enough. You just feel you're not enough. I was always the last one, and I was always people always had to push me and help me, and it was just very very and a very non-encouraging time in my life. And the thing is, we were separated from our home base. They actually got us into this very special place. In order for nobody, I don't know how you call it, bikoret.
Criticism.
No, not criticism. They have rules in the military of what you can and what you can't do with trainees.
Yes.
Stuff you can't do with training soldiers. You can't push them too far.
Supervision.
Right. So they have this supervision. They actually took us out of any place that the supervision can find us.
Oh wow.
So that they can do whatever they want.
Okay.
So essentially I think I was sleeping an hour a night, maybe an hour and a half, maybe for a while. And you just get used to not sleeping. I once fell asleep while walking. I just stood up and fell asleep. And they pushed us physically as hard as they could. And so this story, it happened in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock. We were sleeping maybe, 45 minutes. Everybody out, we're going. And we used to carry some weights, with all the gear and everything.
A backpack.
Yeah, backpacks and stuff. Different.
Lots of stuff.
Right.
It was a lot, wasn't it a lot?
I'm sorry?
About how much?
I would say, in
How
kilos
many
or pounds?
kilos?
I would say, maybe 40, 45.
Which
I
is
think.
a whole lot.
I weigh 65.
Ooh, wow.
At the time, probably I weighed less. Maybe,
Okay.
Yeah, so about almost 2/3 of my weight.
Okay.
I had to carry more. So, and normally it would be in the night, so you don't see anything, and normally it would be on the sand of the sea. So, you drown in the sea, in the sand.
Yes, you
yeah.
sink. Yeah.
What happened that night? Again, we didn't know where we were going, anything. Day and night is the same, you don't sleep anyway. We just started running up this huge mountain. We didn't know where it was. Okay, you don't really know where you are. You just said, okay, start running, and you're carrying all this gear, and we're running, and of course, slowly. These are like, we do it for hours, sometimes whole nights.
Wow.
So slowly, I go back, and after like the first break, I think every half hour you have this break for 2 minutes just to drink water, and you continue. This guy from my unit, he comes to me and he goes, I can't carry my gear anymore, you gotta take my gear. And I'm like, are you from Mars? I mean, can't you know me, you know that I always lag behind, and I barely manage with my own stuff. And he was like, I can't do it. And I looked at him and I said, whatever, So he gave me his gear. At the time I don't even know how much I was carrying at the time. It was so heavy I couldn't straighten my knees.
Yes.
I remember trying to stand up and it was hard to straighten my knees.
Ooh.
And boom, start running. We start running again up the hill. And I remember the pain was so severe, I literally had tears coming down from pain.
Yes.
And I'm embarrassed to say this. At the time, I didn't think there was a God or anything. I was a complete atheist.
Yes.
And I started praying to God. I started praying. I said, God, just break my leg and have them hospitalize me. I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
And I was tearing. Just please break my leg. Please break my leg. Every time we went to one of these exercises, 2 or 3 people would be hospitalized.
Yes.
Almost every time. I think at the time 1 or 2 were already gone, were already hospitalized.
Yes.
We always had this ambulance coming with us. And I was just praying, break my leg, break my leg, break my leg. And for some, I don't even know till this very day how it happened. It's like this Forrest Gump scene from somewhere. I just got all this energy, and all of a sudden I started running and slowly narrowing the gap from the rest of the unit and running more and running more. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? But I have all this energy, and I'm running up the hill, and I pass all the unit. They had the people carrying the strap on in the beginning, okay? And I ran in front of them. The 2 front guys with the strap on just held my belt, and for the rest of this trip, which was probably good 3 or 4 hours more, I was like a horse just carrying everybody uphill.
Oh my God.
And I had the best energy ever. And ever since then, I was one of the strongest, physically, I was one of the strongest in my unit. It was completely psychological. It was so...
who knows what it was? You went from like the weakest guy, or one of the weakest, to the strongest, yes?
The thing is, what I'm thinking, yeah, definitely. And I mean, look at me. I'm still, you know...
Well, you look very strong.
I'm pretty skinny, I think. I mean,
Yes.
we had big guys.
Yes,
You're
that's
thinking
right.
of when you see the Marines. I once met some Marines. They're huge.
That's right.
When I'm thinking back at it, the thing I got out of it, there is this threshold. If you go I'm sorry?
A threshold.
A threshold, yeah. If you go beyond it, then your spirit and your body, they're unlimited. And that's a big thing I got out of it. I didn't continue. I was in this unit for maybe a year more or a year and a half more. And we were just talking, it's funny, we were just talking before we started this filming. I was seeing this quote you have here by the Dalai Lama, never give up.
That's
No
right.
matter what is going on, never give up. And I have the same, I was telling you, I have the same thing in my office. And sometimes I see people in very, very severe conditions, cancer, people who lost their close ones, people who are just, they're so down with themselves. And every now and then I would have the thought that maybe it's gone, it's done for them. Maybe they won't make it in this lifetime. Every now and then some creepy thought like this would go
Yes.
in, and I would look at this Dalai Lama thing and I would remember what happened to me in the military, because at the time I was done. I thought I wanted my leg to be broken. I couldn't take it anymore. And boom, I get the same rash of energy coming through my body, coming through my heart. No, it's never done. You never give up. And the energy will come. And I cherish this experience, and I use it for healing.
Yes, it was great for me. I learned a lot. I still think of that. And I've told your story on films of mine, because it's one of the best I've ever heard. Okay. So Yadin, you said you did understand from your time in the army that that this is not the way for you. Did you have an idea that you'd be a therapist after the army, or you just wanted to explore? What was your thinking?
Well, essentially what had happened was eventually they asked me to leave this unit, and I mean, of course I wasn't made out for being, you know, in such high standards military, you know, combat issues. I did proceed to be an officer, and I was in a combat unit too, but you know, that wasn't such like an elite thing. And
Why did they ask you to leave the unit?
I think at the time I was too sensitive.
Ah,
I was very, very busy with how people are feeling and how I'm feeling, rather than what's the mission ahead.
okay.
And this is not the best thing. I just didn't fit in. I wasn't the right material they needed for that.
Right.
It did come handy though, because the next place I was a platoon commander later in some different unit, And I had about 30 soldiers. Most of them came from very, very bad houses, alcoholic parents, a lot of domestic violence, stuff like that. And I found myself night after night just sitting for endless hours talking to them. My superior officers, they were very unhappy about this, because
Yes.
this, you don't do that. You kind of maintain some distance with your soldiers. But this was the best thing for me, just sitting talking with them. And slowly their parents started calling me, asking to talk and have advice. Their girlfriends, I started going to their houses. And before I realized that before I knew it, I realized I was kind of becoming a therapist.
Oh, wow.
And this was one of the best years of my life, in the military.
Yes. Oh, that's also amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you left the army, you, like a lot of Israelis, you decided to travel, is that right?
Yeah.
What was did you have a motive in your traveling?
Shortly before I got discharged, I was in this incident in South Lebanon.
Which one?
It was a special op that I was part of. Sorry, and it didn't go too well. The Hezbollah, we were fighting the Hezbollah at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was the middle of the night. Some operation. The Hezbollah had found out where we were, and we started taking a lot of fire.
Whoa.
And yeah, it was very, very bad, and some people got killed. We were three teams. It's not my team, but the team next to us. 3 officers got killed. It was a very bad night for the army.
Wow.
But before I knew that they got killed, we were taking all these fires, all this fire. I'm talking of missiles and grenades and everything you could imagine. Like it was like apocalypse now.
Yes.
You would see the sky and you see all these lights flying towards you.
Wow.
And so what had happened then? Everybody were lying, of course, trying to dodge, trying not to be in the line of fire. And for some reason, I got this idea that I would be fine, that nothing's gonna happen to me. And I just stood up, and I looked directly to where you couldn't see the people shooting, but you could see where the light were coming from.
Right.
Like dozens of lights coming towards you.
Right.
And I just stood up, and I said, okay, I'm feeling it. Everything's okay. Nothing's gonna happen. And I just stood up, looking at it, and I had fire going all around me. A guy that was about 3 meters on my right hand side took a shred in his behind,
Wow.
And I just had this very strong feeling everything's okay. And I had this thought, maybe I'm going crazy and I'm thinking I'm whatever, but it was a very stable feeling. And I stood up like this for maybe 10 minutes or so. Who knows? It's battle time. You don't really know the time. But I stood there for a while, and I think this is the first time I actually acknowledged that there is a God. There is something big.
Wow.
And it was a direct experience. The previous experience I was telling you about was strong, but I wasn't agreeing yet to acknowledge that there's something big.
Yes.
This experience was undoubtful.
Wow.
And later I got discharged. A few months later I got discharged. And I said, okay, if such a thing exists, I'm not going to live this life on the side of it. I want to be in it.
Yes.
I want to be part of it. And I started traveling around. I've been many places.
Like where? In the East?
Yeah, the East was part of it. I think for me, the East, I wanted to go to Tibet. I was essentially looking for the most remote, untouched place by the West. And Tibet at the time, I don't know how it's working today. I think it's the same. But Tibet at the time, you couldn't really go there. You could go for maybe 5 days into the capital, into Lhasa, and you would have to have some Chinese guides,
That's
making
right.
sure that you're not going off path or anything like
so
that.
I've heard, yes.
Yeah. So that's what I did, and I sneaked out, and I started walking in the deserts. There's like this huge desert, and it has every few days of walking, you have this monastery. sometimes they would have like 2 people in the monastery, just 2 monks that have been there since forever, and sometimes you would have more. But I was really aiming to find. I'm feeling a bit embarrassed of saying that. I was really aiming to find a guru under a tree, and just sit with him and learn it.
Yes.
And I figured, as far away from the West, as far away from the knowledge that I have here, that's where I'll find it. So I walked around there for a while. I traveled there for a while.
You found no guru under a tree?
That's the funny thing. I'll tell you a funny story, and I think it will break some people's ideas over things. But maybe I'll save some time and money for them. I did find these really interesting monasteries. I know that some of them, I was the first white person they ever saw, or maybe one of very few, because these places where I reached, they always had people running to me, monks, and they wouldn't even say anything. The first thing they would do, each one of them would take a hand and would go like this. They never saw a body hair. They never saw that. So I would have one at every arm and one going like this, and they were shocked.
Oh my goodness.
So I realized, okay, so this is the kind of place I'm looking for. They've never seen such a thing. And they would walk, everywhere I would walk, they would walk with me like this.
Amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable. I went to some monasteries, I stayed there for a while. I never found what I really wanted.
Okay.
I didn't know what to think about it at the time. I'll tell you a nice funny story about this, and then we can move to where I did find it eventually.
Right. Yes.
The last monastery was in the Kailash mountain. The Kailash mountain is I think it's the most holiest place in the East. It's where the 4 holiest rivers of the East originate. The Ganges and 3 other, which I don't remember their names. And the Tibetan people, they go there and they circle the mountain. It's called Kora circle.
And the Kailash mountains?
Kailash.
Kailash mountains.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's very difficult to reach there, especially for Westerners.
Okay.
And the physical conditions are much harder than the military, I can tell you that. It was the worst physical conditions in terms of food and climate, and having no air. You just don't have air when you're in Tibet. It was by far the worst physical conditions I've experienced.
Because you're so high up, you're not used to the oxygen levels.
Yeah, you walk 3 steps and you stop and you breathe for like half a minute or a minute.
Okay.
You just don't have air.
Okay.
And I was circling the Kailash, and I got to this monastery. There were 2 monks, and at the time I already kind of started, accepting that I'm not gonna find what I was looking for in Tibet. So I was just
most of the monks were murdered by the Chinese.
Yeah. I think they ruined about 4,000 out of the 6,000 monasteries they had there. I think so.
And thousands of monks were just murdered. Anyway, yes.
Maybe they got to the real gurus and teachers. I don't know. I realized, I thought that the further I go, the more likely I am to find somebody the Chinese didn't get to. But the picture I saw was dire. And this was the last monastery in Tibet. The monks, these 2 monks, just looked really bored, and they were so happy I was there. I had, for some reason, don't ask me why, I had a pack of cards. Of course, we couldn't communicate in any language. Okay. I was with English, they were with Tibetan. It took me a whole night without a language to teach them how to play poker.
Okay.
And I taught them how to play, including bluffing and everything. How to hold the cards, how to not let the other person know how much you're willing to go, in your bet. And they loved it. They loved it. And I kept having this thought in my head. I was like, dude, you came here to find holiness, and what you're doing is spreading poker. But it was just this surreal scene. Things don't work out the way you want them to work out. They just take whatever form.
But
by
beautiful.
by first.
A beautiful human connection.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was.
Yeah.
I still remember. It was more than 10 years, and I'm pretty sure they remembered me too. And we had the best time. And by first light, I took my backpack and I said,
Yes.
go in. And I started walking, and the sun started coming up. And when I got to the next hill, I looked back at the monastery, and it was beautiful old Tibetan monastery with the pink of the sunrise and all these such strong desert that Tibet has. And it was better than any movie you could ever see. It was so, strong in image. But I couldn't help noticing both of them still sitting in the same place with the cards playing. And I was like, okay, so that's what I leave behind. I gave poker to Tibet.
Well, it's a good thing too, It's like anything else. It's a story. You can tell a good story or a bad story. Byron Katie. Okay. So, where else did you go?
We're talking geography or people?
Well, whatever. What stands out? What was special? I know you traveled a lot.
You know what? I'm realizing that this conversation is gonna slaughter some sacred cows for people. So
That's okay.
So it's gonna be maybe a bit less spiritual than people would think, but I'm sure some things could be. I would like to share these things. They're
Okay,
good.
you're free. Great.
So Tibet was a very, very strong experience in many ways, but I didn't find my guru. I didn't find my spiritual path.
Okay.
And later on I went to India and I went to other places, and at some point I made a change and I went to Guatemala. I went and I lived for a year and a half in this Indian village, in this Mayan village.
Okay.
A small village on the shore of this beautiful lake that's called San Marcos. Some people consider it to be the most beautiful lake in the world. It's a lake. It's like a huge bathtub, that the walls of the bathtub are these active volcanoes that would, sometimes shoot in the sky.
Okay.
And it's just, if you're thinking shamanism, if you're thinking Carlos Castaneda, this is it. You just sit there and you're feeling it. You're feeling the entire Mayan history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hi. You're feeling the entire Mayan history. And I said, okay, I'm gonna find me a shaman. So that's it. And the first person that was presented as a shaman ended up being the drunk Mayan of the village.
Okay.
And he actually hustled me around for a couple of days until I realized, it's just some tourist trap or whatever. So it just got accumulated with other experiences of trying to find the guru. I ended up living there for a year and a half with the Mayans. There was a small Western community of some Americans and Europeans.
Okay.
And I slowly started letting go of the idea of having a big teacher and just accepting the fact that I'm living in a place that would really support any spiritual path should I choose to take it myself.
Okay.
I started making best use of what I had there. I would get up every morning around 4ish, I think, or something like that. I would go to the lake to meditate until the sun would come up. And at the time I was the baker of the village. I learned how to bake.
Uh-huh.
And I was baking the bread for the village. So after the meditation I would bake the bread. It was very, very grounding in one way and spiritual in the other way life. And I was very busy reading at the time this book called Hands of Light by Dr. Barbara Brennan. Yeah.
Yes.
The
famous book. It's considered like a Bible for healers, that book.
Yeah, definitely. I was as I said before, I was slowly getting disillusioned from finding this guru under the tree, and she seemed different. She was a physicist in NASA in the 60s, and she was talking a lot about spirituality, but then she was backing it up a lot with physical facts and research, and she seemed very modest in the way that she writes. And of course, I've never found, not before and definitely not since, any book that had such a rich fountain of knowledge, and on the one hand, and modesty on the other hand. And I said, okay, I have to meet this woman, and I want to learn what she's doing. She has this model of healing people by relating to 7 different layers of their auric field.
Okay.
I said, okay, I want to learn this. I didn't have any money at the time. I was making $6 a day, which made me pretty rich at the time in this Mayan village, but it wasn't enough to fly to the US.
No.
I eventually ended up getting there. It was literally impossible to meet her because there were so many people trying to talk to her. She used to give lectures in the UN, and she used to work with the American health department, and a lot of people are interested in her presence.
Is she still alive?
Yeah, she
Okay.
recently retired.
Okay.
Anyway, I knew where I went to the school, or she was teaching in some convention center. I went there, and I tried to get somebody to help me to talk to her. They said, you can forget about it. And I was like, okay, then I'm gonna do the Israeli thing, and I'm just gonna make her talk to me. I'm just, you know how we do things here. We just we just go for them. I hid somewhere. I knew she was gonna pass. I hid behind the wall, and I jumped. Now, you're seeing me now. You know, I'm well dressed and coherent. I was living in a Mayan village. I looked like a bum. I probably smelled like one too.
Okay.
I jumped, and she was like, this, and I'm like, okay, I gotta have a couple of minutes with you. I came all around the world just to meet you. Please give me a couple of minutes. I have 2 questions. And she stopped and she said, okay, go ahead. And I said, I really want to learn what you're teaching. This seems so pragmatic and serious to me and beneficial. I want to learn this, but I'm Jewish. And in Israel, people tell me I should follow a Jewish route and really connect to my roots. And she took a minute or so before she answered me, and she said, you know, my husband is Israeli.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which I think is really funny because we're all over the place apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah. And she said, we once went to his aunt's funeral, and she said the priest, the rabbi was reading the Kaddish, and she said he was.
The Kaddish is the prayer for the souls of the dead, of the departed ones. The prayer to God that
will take back the soul.
To help them. Yes.
Yeah. So she said, I don't know anything really about Judaism, but I can tell you this. He was reading the Kaddish. He was reading one sentence in Hebrew, one sentence in English. He would translate to English. And she said, he started reading in Hebrew, and she said, I'm seeing these beings, I'm seeing these angels coming down from the sky, going into the grave. And then he reads in English and nothing happens. And she says, then he reads another line, and I see these angels, they're taking out the soul. I can see the reflection of the soul. They're taking out the soul out of the grave and leading it to the family standing near the grave. And then he reads in English and nothing happens. And she says, then he reads another line, and the soul slowly goes to every close relative and departs. And
Wow.
right. And he reads in English and nothing happens. And so it went on until the soul and the angels went up. And she's telling me this story. I know this woman. I don't know this woman, but I've been talking to this woman for about 2 minutes, and she's tearing. She was probably 68 at the time. Very, very strong woman. And she's tearing, and she's halfway apologizing for tearing, but obviously it's a very emotional moment for her. And that's it. And she didn't say anything more. She never gave me an answer. She just gave me this story. And I realized this would be the best teacher I would ever have. It's so different from any teacher I was dreaming of. And I went on studying with her in her school for 4 more years. And this woman filled with knowledge and experience, had never answered any question I asked. She always gave me some piece of information or experience and to allow me to figure out myself.
Okay.
And this story, she never said, you're Jewish, be here, don't be here, do this, don't. This is the story, this is what I saw, you figure it out.
What about the time, Yadin, when fighting was breaking out here, and you felt pulled to come back to serve?
Yeah, this was during the second Lebanese war. This is 2006.
Okay.
I was living in the U.S.
Were you studying at the Barbara Brennan School?
It was during my second year of training. Yeah, I was living in the U.S. Barbara was teaching us about the astral dimension, how to work with it, how to heal people in the astral dimension, how to heal the astral level of every person that's incarnated. And she kept on saying that the astral dimension is a band of consciousness that envelops the earth. And every time we do something, what we do is that we... I hope I'm explaining this right. She probably says it much better and more accurate than me, but you tune in your heart to a frequency which is in the astral dimension, and then every act, every thought, every person, every energy that ever connected with this energy would be sent towards your way. And what you do, you started acting, but you're not the only one acting. Every person that has ever acted this specific quality of action would work with you. Does this make sense?
It sounds a little bit like law of attraction.
Right. You know what? I'll explain exactly what she told me about this war, and then maybe it will become clearer. I said, look, this war broke out, and I want to go fight. And I'm feeling we really tried. I don't want to get into politics, but at the time I felt we really tried to reach a peace agreement and nothing worked. And it's just, okay, so let's have war. And I was feeling this anger and animosity, and I said, you know, I really want to go kill. I'm tired of it. I want to join. I want to be part of it, and I'm done. And once again, she never gave me an answer. She just gave me some directions in general, and she said, you have to understand, the Jewish people have been depositing in the bank of the astral world for thousands of years feelings of persecution, annihilation, anger, loss, etc. She said,
Yes.
Every time you think about your own personal drama, the entire Jewish astral drama starts connecting to you and pushing you. So, of course, you choose because you connect to wanting to being afraid of annihilation and wanting to kill. And you choose to be angry or not to be angry. But once you have made the choice, you have this entire heritage and this energy working its way through you. You're actually channeling this energy.
Yes, I understand that.
Right.
That has a lot to do with why I came to Israel.
Okay.
Now that you say it. So, okay, continue.
So once again, she didn't tell me go to war, don't go to war.
Yes.
She said just realize that you have tuned yourself into this energy, and now you have to choose if you want to execute all this Jewish drama, or you want out of the drama. And she told me this story. Once again, a story. She said she was working with this Jewish client. This Jewish client had some unfortunate accidents which nobody could understand. Some near-death experience, etc. Some diseases which had no medical explanation, etc. She came for healings, and what Barbara saw, she saw these three beings, apparently some relatives of her, maybe grandfathers or great-grandfathers, three beings that were in her energy field the whole time, and they were planting thoughts in her mind. I'm hoping that I'm not doing wrong to this story, but as far as I remember, it was something about the Holocaust. They were like, get back with the germ.
They died in the Holocaust.
I'm thinking
Yes.
I think so, or maybe they survived, but they were very heavily scarred.
Yes. Okay.
And they had some energetic and psychological issues that they still wanted to solve on the physical planet, although they didn't have a physical body. She had a physical body, so they can work through her. And they didn't have any bad intentions. They just wanted out of their drama. And she was their relative, and they wanted to work with her. So they kept on pushing her. They kept on pushing thoughts, ideas into her mind. Give back everything the Germans stole, fight the Germans, whatever, these kind of thoughts. And they would get her to do things, or they would influence her to do things that got her into trouble.
For instance, like what?
I don't know. She told this long time ago, and I'm not sure she went into details. But I mean, the fact that she came to a session with her is, I think, probably that the situation was severe. She almost got killed a few times.
Okay,
the thing is, this has to do with the Hebrew letters you asked me about.
Okay, I just want to say something.
Uh-huh.
There's a famous Japanese healing method.
Okay.
They work with they direct divine light through a talisman that they wear on a necklace. It's called Jorei.
Okay.
And Jorei is very popular. It's getting very, very popular. It's beautiful healing work, and it's a powerful healing movement. Getting very big in South America, in the United States, in Europe, and they talk about ancestral suffering.
Yeah.
And they say in the Jorei that whatever pain or illness you're going through, it's connected with ancestral suffering. So what you're explaining to me sounds exactly, all of these accidents and illnesses that she's manifested in her life, it seems to me they're direct expressions of ancestral suffering. The ancestors are still suffering. And because we're all connected, this is also family constellation work, another type of very, very powerful healing work where you work with the whole constellation of your family, dead and alive. It doesn't matter because we don't die. But if there's an imbalance in any member of the family constellation, it will affect the whole family because we're connected with our families. So in Jorei, just to finish, you send whatever your physical problem is, know it's connected to ancestral suffering because everything is, and send the ancestors, send them to their Christ figure in Jorei, a great being named Meshu Sama. They send so if anything is hurting me, I realize it's ancestor suffering, and I send my whatever ancestors of mine are suffering to Meshu Samu for healing and for blessing. So anyway, it just strikes me.
It's really, what you're saying is very connected to what she was talking about. So essentially she was trying to find the psychological connection in between these beings and her client. And she said at that moment her guide interfered, and he said, direct them towards the Jewish letters.
Whoa.
Yeah, and she said Jewish letters started coming down, and really
Hebrew letters.
The Hebrew letters, yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me. And they started emerging from everywhere, just the entire Hebrew alphabet. And she said that as soon as they saw these three beings being out of body, as soon as they saw these Hebrew alphabet,
yes,
they just went into white light. They let go of this drama completely, and they were able to connect back to the origin, to white light. And she said, if you want out of this drama, if you don't want to be part of this drama of annihilation, if you really wanted to connect to the source, the true source of the Jewish spirit, focus on the Hebrew letters. And I said, okay, I mean, what do you want me to read? Because I was reading books. She said, no, just focus on them. And she said, specifically these two. And she did something like this. She was, I guess, psychically watching, psychically viewing, and she tried to draw it on the blackboard.
On a real blackboard?
This, I don't know, a whiteboard, with the...
Okay,
yeah. She tried to put it. She tried to put it there. One of them, I think, was Vav.
Vav.
Yeah, and the other one, she I still remember it. She laughed a bit. She was a bit embarrassed. She said, I'm not sure if I'm drawing it right because I'm drawing it out of psychically viewing it. But she said it looks like the Greek letter of pi. And she drew Hey.
Hey. Well, these are two letters in the Tetragrammaton, the sacred four-letter name of God, the Yud He Vav He.
Yeah.
These are very, very powerful letters. So she said to meditate on these
She
letters.
said just look at them. And I said,
Okay.
should I do any? Just look at them. She said, if you look at them, they hold a very, she said, I don't know so much about it, but I do know they hold a very strong power, and when you're looking at them, you're connected with white light, you can't go wrong. And other than this guidance being an unbelievable guidance for me, what I find really funny about it is that the conversation in between me and her started 2 years earlier when I said, should I study spirituality with a non-Jewish person? And the person that got me closest to the Jewish mysticism is not a Jew. It's Barbara
Yes.
Brennan. And she had explained this. Later on, I found out that in the Kabbalah, in the Zohar, they talk a lot about these letters, about meditating on them, etc. I found out if you find this truly spiritually evolved being, then they see the truth. They just see it. It's there.
Yes.
For her, it was apparent. She may have not known so much about the information, but she could tell you exactly what it does.
But didn't she also tell you that whenever she gets to the very deepest levels of healing,
Yeah.
on anybody, Jewish or non-Jewish, the
Yeah.
Hebrew letters appear.
The Hebrew letters and the Sanskrit letters.
Amazing.
She said that a Toru, like the sign,
A Taurus.
a Taurus,
Yes.
would come down and it would have the Hebrew alphabet and the Sanskrit alphabet.
Now that is incredible.
And she said, in fact, this is apparently I'm hoping I'm being accurate with what she said. Apparently, these forms, these geometrical forms, it's like sacred geometry, I guess.
Yes.
That they hold some code.
The keys of Enoch calls them, the Hebrew letters and the Sanskrit letters, flame geometries.
Who calls them?
The keys of Enoch.
Okay.
Maftachot Chanoch. It's a very famous book, which I've talked about.
And he puts them together, the Jewish and the Hebrew and the
What it says
Sanskrit?
in the keys of Enoch, Hanoch in Hebrew,
Yeah.
is that on the earth there are actually 5 galactic languages that are spread out through through civilizations in the whole galaxy.
Okay.
And I think I could remember them. One of them is Tibetan. One of them is Chinese. One is Sanskrit. One is Egyptian hieroglyphs. And one of them is Hebrew.
Wow.
And it says in that book, I could show you the book. I have it in Hebrew too, but maybe not here. It says in that book that when you work with these languages, you connect to these civilizations. And even if you just meditate on one name from each language, they give a technique for meditating on one name from each language, that it will open up all the doors. And And they do say that somehow the Hebrew is very, very important. The Hebrew sort of ties them all together. And also they say, well, Hanoch says in the book, that every Hebrew letter is like a divine idea. So, something special. And also, my friend Whitefeather, who I interviewed a short time ago, there's a science called cymatics. Cymatics is the study of sound on matter. Okay, so you take like a powder or a spore, and if you start take a sound, a steady vibration, and you start raising the pitch as the sound gets higher and higher, then the powder will form geometric shapes, and the higher you go, the more complex and beautiful the geometry. Just by a single sound going higher and higher in frequency and pitch. And Whitefeather says that she read by the genius behind the science of cymatics. When you say the Hebrew and Sanskrit letters, the powder will form in the actual shape of the letter. So if you say Aleph or maybe if you make or Shin, it will somehow form in a shape resembling the letter itself. I hope I'm remembering correctly. Now, or maybe it's just the sound of the letter. So when you make the sh sound, it looks like the letter Shin. Anyway, I don't know. I'll have to watch that film and refresh my memory.
That's really interesting.
It is interesting. So there's something, yes, very, very special about Hebrew. And even though the Keys of Enoch was received by J.J. Hurtak, an American Jew, in English, the book is filled with Hebrew because the Hebrew is very, very powerful. And it doesn't just belong to the Jews. The Hebrew is this ancient galactic language, so like the other five. So, and Sanskrit apparently is no less powerful. So anyway, for whatever that's worth.
How interesting is that?
Mm-hmm. So, okay. You said, I want to go back before Barbara Brennan.
Okay.
I once asked you in a previous interview that you did meet many high people and yogis and really accomplished spiritual teachers. And you said that there was one thing that what impressed you is that they're like everyone else with all the emotions, but they could switch out of the negative emotions quicker. Is that so?
That was my experience. You know who talks about this the most? Do you know about the Pathwork? The Pathwork Guide?
No, I don't.
Well, there was actually it's Barbara's teacher. One of Barbara's teachers. There was a woman in the 60s. She was actually Jewish, and she was born in Austria. Her name was Eva Broch, later known as Eva Pirakos.
Okay.
In the US and Europe, she's pretty famous, I think, at least in the spiritual communities. And she was channeling way before anybody was, receptive to the idea of anybody channeling. She was channeling, I think, late 50s. And she had people following her in the US. She moved to the US just before Second World War. And she channeled for about 20 some years. Eventually there was a community in Phoenicia, that's upstate New York. I think the Dalai Lama owns it now,
Okay.
But they had a community there, and she would give, I think, once a month a channel for the entire community, and they would work with that. And essentially what she was giving there, what the Pathwork Guide was giving there, he was talking about, I just want to make sure I'm putting this right, about emotional freedom, in such way that the true master experiences freedom on the inside, and having freedom on the inside meaning having the ability to feel completely any human experience and then to let go. And for the longest time I got I got the impression out of books, out of different teachers I met, that you have to be in line and you have to be in sync and you have to, of course, devote yourself to a specific spiritual path, and you have to, renounce, you have to let go of your physical needs, etc., etc. So there was a lot of need and must and have, etc.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you have this spiritual teaching that says that being a true master is having the ability to be with everything, feel everything to the fullest, and then move on.
Yes.
Rather than stay away from it.
It's the flexibility.
Yeah.
That makes a master. I mean, they could switch out of it. If it's a negative emotion, something they're not wanting.
Yeah, the way I understand it, if you have aversion towards something, then you will draw it into your life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
When you have a charge on something, let's say Greg Braden, great teacher.
Okay.
He says, "What's the promise of a charge? What does he mean by charge? Let's say I have a problem with dishonest people.
Right.
Okay, that means I have a charge on dishonesty. So Greg Braden says, what's the promise of a charge? And then the promise of a charge is you will see it. If you have a thing against dishonesty, you're going to see it over and over and over because you have a charge that literally will attract it to you. So unless you're willing to feel it and go into it, and the more you're receptive to being in this experience rather than taking it out of your life, the faster you can go out of it. Well, you have to work. You have to heal the charge, and the only way you could heal it is
by uniting with it.
Uniting with it.
So it's all about uniting. It's all about being one with everything you meet.
Yes. If you have a charge on being alone, you're going to get that. If you have a charge on whatever it is, abandonment, not good enough, that's a big one. Then life will reflect that to you. So, anyway,
what they would do, I would just using what you just said, what they would do in the path work, they would actually go, and later on we did this work with Barbara Brennan, they would actually go and look at everything they avert and be one with it. They would allow themselves to feel it, and they would just practice on feeling and moving out, feeling and moving out, just having this emotional freedom of feeling everything and just being able to. And the more I did this work, I realized that I have an ability to be angry, happy, jealous, joyful, and sad in like 30 seconds.
Which is great.
And I'm getting more and more choice in how much I'm wanting and willing to feel an emotion at a specific point. So you're slowly becoming more masters of your feeling.
Yes.
Yeah. So not that I reached any such high level. Some things take me like in a storm, but
yes,
the ability to work with it and choose what you want to feel by not averting anything.
Yes. In the book Initiation.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, which is great, classic book by a great master, Elizabeth Haig.
Yeah.
True story. She talks.
You know, I think actually her partner. She talks about her partner, that yogi.
In the book. Yes.
Yeah, he was here a few years ago.
He's still alive.
I think so, and he was here. He was here a few years ago. I even think I went to see him.
Okay, she doesn't mention.
Yeah, he's a yoga teacher. Same like in the book.
Okay, well, that's an old book. In any case, she talks about, she remembers her life as a princess, and then later as an initiate priestess, a neophyte, in ancient Egypt, Pharaoh's daughter. And this training that you're talking about was what they, as I recall, was what they did in ancient Egypt. And this is mastery, yeah. To be able to switch out of these things, to feel and to be the master of what you want to be with, more or less. So fascinating. So you had 4 years in Barbara Brennan's school.
Yeah.
What's the school called?
It's called the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. That's
Okay.
plain and simple. Yeah.
And in Massachusetts?
That's in Miami.
In Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. And it still exists.
It
right?
still exists. It's. I think it would be like the manifestation of the Harry Potter school. It's a place where everywhere you go you see magic. I had so much magic happening to me. There are like things that were unreal in how beautiful they were. I once had this experience. It was very interesting. I guess this was like a local initiation of myself. I asked Barbara how I could connect with my guides, and she said, "Okay, close your eyes." And she started channeling my guides, and she said, "Okay, we're touching your right shoulder right now." And they are. She was talking.
Yes.
She was talking for them. She was channeling. We're touching your right shoulder. We're doing this. We're doing that. So they were doing some nice stuff with me to get me to believe that they're always with me. And she said, as a token, we're gonna give you something, and keep that thing with you, so that you remember we're always with you. Even when you're unattentive and unaware of our presence, we're always here with you. So we're gonna give you this thing. And I was with my eyes closed. As soon as she said that, I saw this thing, it flew like this. It was this geometrical form. I still haven't been able to figure out what kind of a geometrical form. I don't think it was a Merkava. It had more corners. More angles. It had more.
Okay. Points?
It had more points. Yeah.
Okay.
And it just flew in, and I was like, oh, okay.
Flew into your body?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Okay.
And it was a very, very strong experience, but like any spiritual strong experience you have, it fades with time. And you get to a point, and I hate it when it happens, but it happens, when you start doubting what had happened to you. Do you know this? Do you know these experiences which are very strong at the moment?
I do.
And you think about it a few years back, and you go, oh, maybe I was imagining, maybe it's a wishful thinking, you know? You have doubt. So I'm really embarrassed to say that that's what happened. I started, after a while, at the first was very strong, after a while, I kind of lost this token. I forgot about it, and I didn't think too much about it after a while.
Okay.
And I went back to being the person I was. And after a while, we were in this, every week we would have 3 big meditations with Barbara, the entire school. We would assemble, and Barbara would give a healing to the entire energy field of the school.
Wow.
And she would just work to make it stronger, so that the individual processes we would have within this inner energy field would be more evolved, more powerful. So we had one of these, and it was, sometimes we would go out of this, you wouldn't be able to talk for an hour. You would just so wowed.
Wow.
We came out, and I was sitting, and I was just whatever, I was thinking about something, and this girl, which I never, I just saw her, I never knew her. I was maybe first year. I was in the end of my first year. She was in the end of the fourth year, and we never really talked, I think. And she just walked to me and she said, "I was thinking about you, and I got something for you. I was carrying it during the healing meditation that Barbara gave to the entire school. We used to call it the Goddess Healing Meditation. So I want to give you this. I was holding it for the entire time of the meditation, and I asked for Barbara's energy to go there for you." And she gave me this stone, which was the exact same shape
Ooh.
as this token I got.
Ooh.
The exact same thing. She just put it there.
Why?
And I was
I mean,
like,
yeah.
you can't doubt this. That this is not going anywhere.
Okay, that's amazing. All right. So finally, what is it about Barbara that makes her? I mean, in conclusion, with this part of your life, what is it about her that makes her the great teacher? That made her the great teacher in your life, and in the lives of so many. What is it about her?
Wow.
What makes her so special?
I could talk for hours about this. I'm just going to talk about my own experience for a second, and I hope this would give what I'm thinking. Barbara used to open every session with the words, "Ground down to the core of your being and align yourself with the purpose of being here now." And I ended up, because she kept on repeating it, and every time you would ask her a question, she would somehow reflect to these words, "Ground down to the core of your being and align yourself with the purpose of being here now." She got us, she got me to always aspiring every second of my life to think, how is this moment serving the evolution of my soul?
Oh, wow.
So I strive very much everything I do. This interview, it's an interview, and I'm thinking, okay, what is the best way I can, what can I make best out of this for the evolution of my soul, of your soul, of everybody that's watching? And then I start talking. I do healing. Ground down to the core of your being and align yourself with the purpose of being here now. As if this entire universe, this entire planet is like a theater that's made all for you so that your soul can use it to grow. You just have to remember every second that whatever is going here right now is set up by Him so that you can grow out of it. So make sure you make the best of it. And she got me to make best of, I don't want to say every minute because I'm not that conscious, but
Of course not.
dozens of times a day, waiting in a bus station, just doing some boring thing. How is this serving my soul? This is not a coincidence. How am I making best out of this for the evolution of my soul? And when I will look back at it, will I be saying, I made best use out of it. My soul got evolved because of it. So these words, and this is the kind of person she was. Everything she did, every teaching she gave, you could always feel this line of light going through her saying, ground down to the core of your being and align yourself with the purpose of being here now.
Ooh, wow. That's great. That's really great.
That's Barbara.
Okay. So, tell me about your life now you do. What it is you do and what it is that you feel characterizes you as a healer and you as a human being.
Most of the time I'm in my office. I give a lot of sessions a week, and I teach at the Riedman College for complementary medicine. A lot I teach of what I learned from Barbara, some other sources too. I'm secretly working on this idea between me and myself, and as I said, if I'm grounding down to the core of my being, and I'm trying to figure out how my life now is supposed to serve my soul, then I look at the classes I'm giving, and I look at the sessions I'm giving as a therapist, as a healer, and I have this intuition. Maybe you'll find it funny. I'm thinking that within this lifetime, within this age that we're living, there has to be a cure to emotional pain. I think the biggest problem of this planet is emotional pain. I think we are 7 billion people that lack love and lack physical touch.
Yeah.
I've never met a person that couldn't use somebody touching him and telling them they're great. Never one. And I'm thinking within this age, within our lifetime, all the different healing theories, psychological theories, everything, they would have to become one and to find some way of really healing people's emotional worlds, and we will stop walking so with so much anger, so much frustration, with so much hostility, especially in this country. And so I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, okay, how is this going to take place? And I don't think I'll be the person that will have the answer, but I am thinking, how can I contribute? And one idea I do have, I'm looking at people that are dying from cancer, or people with Crohn, or any such diseases. And there are all these books, really interesting books. Some of them by Deepak Chopra, and some of them by Bernie Siegel, who wrote about his work.
Love, Medicine, and Miracles.
Right. So
health, wellness, and something. They
write a lot about these the consciousness that diseases have, right?
Yes.
And they're saying, okay, if you can take, but in some way, if you can take the person out of that disease consciousness, then their energy field will change, and by that the body will change. It will stop inhibiting cancerous cells or any disease.
Yes.
And we know that there are some cases like these of people who just overnight or over a few weeks just literally changed their mind, and boom, it was gone. And I had a client a couple of years back that they found a tumor in his head, a cancerous tumor. It was about this big. It's huge.
Yes.
In his head, and he could, for some reason, he couldn't take any chemotherapy or any treatments. They gave him a surgery. They took most of it out. Eventually, about a chunk about this big stayed, because they couldn't touch it because they didn't want to hurt his motorical.
Yes.
And anyway, he came for healings. I was working on him side by side with another healer, a great healer that lives here in Jerusalem, named Shai Sheffer, who's a genius. We were working for about 6 weeks. He got no treatments, no medical treatments whatsoever. We had an MRI from pre-healings and MRI 6 weeks later after the healings, and the tumor was gone. And the doctors they confirmed it. Yes. In a 6 weeks time, it was just gone. I don't claim to know exactly what happened there, but I do think that there's some secret which we still haven't uncovered, that if a person makes this emotional and mental shift, the disease will stop occurring to him, will stop living within him. So I'm actually building this project. It's very much in your research stages now. It will probably take many more years. I want to start this center that would give the best conditions for people who wish to change their mind in order to get rid of the disease consciousness. So I'm building different techniques and different theories and exercises, and I want to build this place in nature that if a person has this disease, this acute disease, he would be able to leave his surroundings, because sometimes the
That's the key, to leave the surroundings.
Right.
That made you sick.
the one thing you need to do is leave the surrounding.
Yeah.
And go there and give him all the exercises, atmosphere. If you need to push him, then the pushing, to literally change his mind and have a different structure so the disease would stop being there.
When you say that, it's very interesting. I think a key would be teaching the law of attraction, because the work of Esther Hicks, channeling Abraham, I think that's a big key for changing the mind. What else also pops into my mind? Cryan says that healers, in a way, it's an inaccurate word. Cryan says the word that should be used is energy balancers. Okay. And according to Cryan, what the healer does, he balances the energy field, and then it's up to the person to somehow go with that gift and keep it. And one last thing that pops into my mind when you say what you just said. Cryan says when you work on a client, on a patient, you should look them in the eyes at the beginning of the treatment and ask them, do you agree that healing take place from our work together? And hopefully they'll say yes. They'll go inside and say yes. And then the second question is, with the eye contact, do you agree that your DNA and RNA change as a result of our work together? And then hopefully the client will go inside and say yes to that as well. And when you ask these two questions and they say yes, they've gone from being passive recipients to active participants. Yeah. Which is, I think, key for real healing to come. So I don't know, that popped into my mind.
You know, it's really funny that you're saying this, because I saw this client about a year ago that had cancer in his pancreas. I got there really late. He was already really dying. As soon as I saw him, I realized that I may not be able to help. And I said, okay, I'm just going to sit down and talk to this guy and see, how can I contribute in this stage? He was already looking not good. And I asked him, so why are you sick? The more people are getting closer to dying, they know why they're sick. They're only fighting in the beginning, but when people come closer and closer to dying, they know. They have a very strong intuition of what happened. And he said, I'm dying because of my work. I was working in very, very bad emotional conditions, and it took a toll on me. It changed me for the worst, and that's why I'm dying. And I said, okay, I don't want to do anything you're not up for, because you look pretty happy with your space here. Do you want to heal, or are you done? And he said, I'm done. Yeah. And this goes exactly to where you are. He didn't want to be healed. He was okay. He had a good family. He loved them. He was a good father, and he was okay. He was okay. He took the lesson out of this life, and he was okay with leaving. Yeah.
Well, that's a valid choice. Okay. So, but I think asking those questions, I think it's a good idea. Make them part, we're trained to be passive receivers. I pay you the money, give me the healing.
Yeah.
But having them go inside and answer those questions, it's a good thing.
I agree.
Okay. Yadin, it's been really, really great. Do you have any final things that you'd like to say or to close with?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing personally to you.
Sure.
I was thinking about you coming here, and every now and then you pop into my mind. And I was thinking how funny it is. You keep on interviewing people, you keep on talking to people, you keep on spreading knowledge and light. And 99% of the people I know that you're talking to or talking about don't have half of the challenges you have in your life. On the physical, I guess on the emotional and spiritual too, levels. And yet, you are giving so much space to other people's difficulties and challenges in their life. Sometimes I'm talking to you, I'm talking about other clients, and I realize that the opportunities they have in their life are much easier than yours. And it still amazes me the amount of space you can hold for other people. I think, I hope I'm not embarrassing you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, I think for me, every time I see you, there is some healing to it, for me. And I want to explain why. The ability to be observed, the ability to be beyond whatever it is misery you're supposed to be in for an individual. This ability that you have and what you give, it every time it makes me think and redefine myself, my work, and the people I see in a different way. And in this aspect, in many other aspects too, because you're spreading knowledge, but in this aspect, you are a messenger. I hope you are able to take it in. You are carrying a healing. You make shifts.
I'm glad. I mean, that makes me happy to hear. What I know is, one of my favorite true life stories is the story of a family that had a very autistic son, Barry Kaufman, and his wife, Susie Kaufman. And they went to all the institutions that were supposed to help autism, and they didn't like any of what they saw, and really none of it was very good. Some of it was very ugly. So they decided to work with their own son and come up with their own a treatment method for their own son.
Right.
And they wrote a book about it. And first of all, they succeeded, and the boy succeeded miraculously. The boy's name was Ron Kaufman, and Ron went out of autism completely. And I saw him as a young man being interviewed about all the Ivy League colleges that were wanting him to go to their school. No trace of autism, and such an inspiring story. And they wrote a book about their experience with their son called Sunrise. And any autistic parent, I recommend the works of Barry and Susie Kaufman. They have a center where parents come with autistic children to do this work with their own children. And they have miraculous results. And also very often, by the way, just a little aside, autism is connected to nutrition and the chemical pollutants in the body, and there are things, very physiological diet changes that can make a huge difference And there's a book by Jenny McCarthy and Dr. Jerry Carsonell, MD, about how to help these children. And stay away from vaccines, by the way, for your children as much as possible. Because it's heavy chemicals to put in an immature immune system. It could do a lot of damage, and they're covering it up. So, anyway, in the movie, to make a long story short, in the movie Sunrise, there's a scene where the father...
They made a movie out of it.
They made a movie.
Okay. Sunrise, S-O-N?
S-O-N.
S-O-N, okay, nice.
My boy.
Yeah.
There's a scene where the father of Ron, he says, and somebody saying to him, oh, what a great man you are, doing all of this for your son. And he answers, no, I'm doing it for me. All of it is for me. In other words, everything I do it for me. It's what nurtures my soul to interview people like you, and to do all the fun stuff we do at this house. And really, I do it for me. And I think if we're not doing something for our own soul, if we don't get that, then we're missing the mark. So I'm just having a good time. And it's what nurtures me. So, thanks, Yadin. Thank you. I
Thank you.
What you said. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
And, okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.